Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today you have given me a task to taste Meiomi Pinot Noir to see if it's really as controversial as some of you claim. A while ago, I did a video on Caymus Cabernet Sauvignon. Many of you voted it as the most overrated wine, so I decided to blind taste it against other Cabernet Sauvignon wines and see where it really stands. I am happy that the video sparked some great discussions. Some of you even suggested that I should try, and may I say, invest in, the Caymus Special Selection and taste that instead. So stay tuned, I will be tasting that bottle blind very soon. But what really caught my attention was that one wine kept appearing in the comments more than any other, being called one of the most overrated wines, and that was Meiomi Pinot Noir. Now, I have never tasted Meiomi Pinot Noir before, and today is going to be my first time, and it will be blind. But I want to tell you how I first heard about it and why my initial reaction was to defend the label. So it all started with Adam Lee, a winemaker behind the Santa Barbara County label Dial Tone, reporting that Meiomi Pinot Noir contains 32 times more sugar than his wine. And that statement alone set the wine world into a storm.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
And for the first time in my life, I saw winefluencers reacting to it, saying things like, "We are not judging, but OMG, what do you think? Comment below." Now, why was my initial response to actually support Meiomi? Firstly, because I am not someone who judges a wine by its sugar content alone. One of the most prestigious champagnes, Cristal, tends to have relatively high dosage, around 8 to 10 grams, and we still love it because it is all about balance, not just sugar. And some of the world's greatest, longest-lived wines are sweet wines, so it is not sugar that bothers me. But more importantly, in that claim, they never mentioned the actual residual sugar in the wines. And when all the winefluencers were reacting to those headlines, none of them asked the question: what is the sugar content in Dial Tone? And what is the sugar content in Meiomi Pinot Noir? Hypothetically, I was thinking, if the residual sugar in Dial Tone is around 0.1 grams, that would mean Meiomi has 3.2 grams. Both wines would still classify as dry wines by all standards, so who cares? As it later turned out, the numbers are as follows: 0.6 grams of residual sugar in Dial Tone, which would make around 19 grams of residual sugar in Meiomi. And they actually disclose this information on their technical pages, so all is fair. Now, a few legal papers and lawyer calls later, Adam Lee claimed that this promotion was meant to get people thinking about how much sugar we consume. My initial reaction was, is it glucose spikes he's worried about, or is it calories? Because alcohol actually packs way more calories per single gram than sugar. But he also mentioned something else, and that was that both wines can be labeled as dry. So maybe this should have been addressed to Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. In the European Union, a dry wine cannot exceed more than 4 grams of residual sugar per liter, with some exceptions related to the wine's acidity. Essentially, it all comes back to balance. Apparently, there is no such regulation in the US, and that allows wider sweetness levels to be labeled as dry, which to me borders on being misleading to consumers. Now, saying this, Adam Lee is not the first person to express dissatisfaction with this label. There are many people who claim that Meiomi Pinot Noir is manufactured wine or artificial wine, while at the same time criticizing those who enjoy it, claiming that it is only liked by people who do not like wine or do not understand wine. So you can imagine that with all this drama, I really wanted to taste the wine myself. But similarly as last time, I really wanted to be honest, so I decided to taste it blind. I have chosen to compare it against other popular labels, as well as some lesser-known labels that offer similar value. There is one key difference from the previous Caymus video. This time I was looking for wines at a similar price category. Because Caymus Cabernet Sauvignon is so much more expensive, it made sense to include more value labels in that tasting and see how they stood next to the premium-priced Caymus. But Meiomi is relatively affordable wine, so we really should not compare it with more expensive labels. And one more thing, which I feel very sorry about, I could not include dial tone in this tasting because it was simply not available in Europe. Shall we start? As always, these wines were poured by my cameraman, so I don't know which one is which. All of them are Pinot Noir. Majority of them comes from United States, and then there are few wines from other countries as well. They all are at the same price category. So let's start with wine number 1. Okay, so classic Pinot Noir color. We have medium intensity ruby color and fresh cherries, strawberries. Wine does not seem too intense on the nose. It is just offering some of those berries and raspberries, being very polite. Of course, we are in the price category where we do not expect really expressive and complex wines, probably not aged in new oak barrels. So simple primary fruit, charming primary fruit is something that I would expect in all of these wines. All right, and this is exactly what this wine offers. So we have these really bright primary fruit berries dominating the nose. So let's taste it finally. I think the acidity is something that shines the most here on the palate for this wine. And then we have maybe, some of the sour cherries and sour red berries. The tannin, it is melting tannin. It is almost non-existent tannin, or maybe I have used to Nebbiolo tannin and Cabernet Sauvignon tannin a lot. And Pinot Noir tannin is just, it rather adds texture than the tannin structure, I would say. It is always very difficult to rate very first wine because it is also playing a role of calibration on your palate. But for this moment, I will give it is 89. Yeah, I will give this wine 89, maybe with possibility to climb up to 90 points. I think it is honest label. Let's move to wine number 2. Okay, so this on the nose seems more riper in style. This was red berry driven. There's something warm, something almost smoky and really ripe, ultra ripe berries, maybe slightly even, burnt cherries, if I may say so, or caramelized strawberries. Okay. And it is way more expressive on the nose. So the nose is way more intense. And this was being really honest and maybe towards the Shire style, and this is in your face. Something that I do not always necessarily expect from Pinot Noir. Color-wise, it's the same. It does have a bit of garnet rim to it, so maybe it is a bit older vintage, or maybe the bottle has been standing in some nice, shiny, warm place. That could also be the case. All right. So let's taste it. Interestingly, in wine number 1, I did not mention alcohol. It was non-present on the palate. So we would say that the alcohol was quite well balanced in the wine number 1. Here, I don't think the alcohol is really high, but somehow it was felt in some places on the palate, like I had the presence of alcohol, like presence of a ghost, presence of an alcohol on the palate. And then it had that really medium acidity. And it had that sweetness of the fruit, that ripeness of the fruit, and maybe even the same caramelization that we have mentioned on the palate. That kind of caramelized or slightly burnt cherry or strawberry skin, you know, that kind of caramelized sugar element. So that's quite unique. I rarely find those elements in Pinot Noir. I will give this wine, I'm very conflicted. I'm not sure that I am the greatest fan of that kind of caramelized, that really ripe fruit profile, that almost like burnt fruit profile on the nose and on the palate. So I will give this wine 88 points, but that is my personal preference. I do not expect from Pinot Noir to have that. I kind of want that brightness, that it's ripe fruit, it's beautiful, but I don't want to have that, that caramelized, that really ripe or overripe flavors. If it is part of something else, you know, if there's complexity of it, you know, and you see evolution in the wine, it's nice. If it is something that dominates, as in this case, then maybe it's not so much. But that's my personal preference. Let's move to wine number 3. Okay, so interestingly, this has the most intense color from, if we are judging wine 1, 2, and 3. But it is still Pinot Noir color. So we still have that medium color intensity. All right, and this one is quite interesting on the nose. So we do have those red berries. We have really ripe red berries. We have ripe strawberries, raspberries. We have ripe cherries, but they're crushed. They are not cooked as it felt in wine number 2. Here they just seem crushed, resolved, and maybe slightly oxidized in their character. There's also some notes of earthiness, some spice, some vanilla, some maybe, you know, some toasty flavors. So there could be some presence of oak, whether or not it is old oak or you know, maybe some artificial oak elements, which could also be the case. But there is some of the complexity here. Okay, let's taste it. All right. So on the palate, this wine seems really interesting. So the first thing, alcohol in this wine is really present, and it is something that sticks out more than in wine 2, which I mentioned also here. And then, And then it felt really fruity on the palate, but not fruity in a way that you would expect from the top quality wines to be, but fruity more like, you know, fruit juice. And because it is the fruity characters, like the fruity, juicy characters on the palate, together with that alcohol that spikes out, it felt unbalanced. There was some of the bitterness, but that really, it was not overwhelming. But how to say this correctly? So it felt like some of those elements were created there to make, you know, perfect balance, but they were not married together, you know? This is why it's so difficult to talk about this wine, because from one point when you're looking, you have, you know, the ripeness, you have the fruitiness, you have the tannin texture, which does not take over. But from the other side, when you look at it, it is not complete. There are these spikes, and it somehow does not feel complete wine, even though it has all these structures and elements in it. So I will give this wine 86 points. Let's move to wine number 4. Okay, so this one is a bit deeper in color as well. No, maybe. It is more intense color-wise. Can I just say one thing? If I would have to move now to wine number 1, I would actually give it 90 points. I was a bit conflicted when I started because it was the very first wine I tasted this tasting. But now when I look back, it was really pure fruit. It was delicate, lovely fruit, and it had that lively balance. And if it is not too expensive, it is nothing more you would expect from this wine. So let's continue with wine number 4. Okay, so what is happening? Because I feel here on the nose alcohol. Is it building up in my palate and in my nose? Like you feel all those crushed raspberries and strawberries and cherries, and they're really ripe. So again, we are talking about ripe wine, but I do feel alcohol on the nose here as well. And on the nose for me, it's no, because sometimes our palate can be very sensitive, but we do not want to have ethanol evaporating in your nose. Yeah, it is kind of overpowering the fruit. And I do feel fruit somewhere on the background over there. And maybe the wine is already too warm in this environment. I've been talking a lot. Let's taste it. All right. So this wine has really high acidity. It is lively, it is zesty, it is old world acidity. It is, wow. On the palate, I can assure you this wine is actually served in a perfect temperature. I think there is the zestiness and liveliness and fruit dominance on the palate. The tannin is a bit grippier, but like Pinot Noir grippy, not necessarily, Cabernet Sauvignon grippy. And it adds like a beautiful texture here. I love the acidity. I am not the greatest fan of the nose here. So I will give this wine 88.5 points. Let's move to wine number 5. Okay, oh my, what's done with this wine? What's done with this Pinot Noir? It's really deep in color. Like, ooh, and the nose, it's really intense. It smells of, wait for it. It smells of blackberries, blueberries. That's strange. Pinot Noir never smells like this. All right, if I wouldn't know that all of the wines that we selected are Pinot Noir, I would not have guessed that this is Pinot Noir. It has zero Pinot Noir quality. It has zero Pinot Noir authenticity and typicity because Pinot Noir is not in that color usually. Yes, it can be deeper in color, of course. Yes, it can be lighter in color, Sometimes it borders on being pink, or rosé. But this is strange. On the nose, Pinot Noir is usually dominated by these really red berries, raspberries, and we were talking about variety of red berries, riper, less ripe, fresher, zestier, cooked or crushed. But we never did talk about, blueberries and blackberries, like black currant. This smells of black currant. This is really interesting and unique wine. And guys, when I tasted it, it of course did not taste of Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir usually tends to have this really high, zesty, lively acidity. And of course there are variations, but this was not it. And it is sweet tasting. And it is not sweet tasting that we had the ripeness or, cooked fruit character that we had in wine number 2 or 3. It is sweetness, sugar. It is not backed with fruit flavors. I want fruits in my wine. I want, these fruit aromas, lovely, zesty, beautiful in my wine. I do not want random fruits dipped in sugar. I don't want my wine to be sugar coated. Like I want my wine to be honest. I want my wine to tell where it's coming from, what it's made from, at least, and I want to have an honest winemaking. I don't think this is it. I will give this wine, I am sorry, you are trying too hard. I will give you 84 points. You're not expressing what you are. You're hiding behind something. And I love honesty. Let's move to wine number 6. Okay, so actually, maybe it is because wine number 6 is following after wine number 5, but I actually quite enjoy the nose of this one. It is still riper than the wine number 1. It is maybe, 2 or 3 days later picked. Cherries, strawberries, raspberries, than maybe for the wine number 1. There's also some cherry pit in it, like maybe crushed cherry skin in it. So there is something that maybe caught your attention, but it is all beautifully integrated with the fruit. It is not standalone element. I would want to say that wine number 6 shows the most structure. And the acidity comes later. All right, because the very first sip was, where is the acidity? I would like to have some more zestiness to it, like the more nerviness to it. But while I was talking about the structure, because it does have that tannin, that maybe a bit of grippier character that puts this wine into a frame. But then the acidity swooped in and refreshened the palate and maybe added a bit of sour cherry, at the end. Yeah, I think I actually liked the nose a bit more. It felt more promising than the palate itself. But overall, it was a nice way to finish this tasting. The alcohol is quite well integrated here as well. I do not feel it. I feel like there is like a core to it. There's warmth to it, that's for sure. But nothing is really spiking out or taking over the palate otherwise. I will give this wine 89.5 points. I like it a lot. I just don't think it is as good as wine number 1. And to be honest with you, I think the wine number 1 for me, through all this tasting, was the best wine. So that leaves us with revealing the wines. All right, so let's reveal the wines and let's start with wine number 1. Okay, so this is Catherine Marshall, Pinot Noir on Sandstone soils, 2023 vintage. So it says South Africa. I am currently reading a book by Alex Meltman, Smell the Limestone, Taste the Slate, I think. So saying that the wine is Pinot Noir on Sandstone soils makes me a bit smiley, chuckle a little bit, I guess. And I think it was really honest wine. I gave it 90 points. I think it's well deserved. I would not be offended to enjoy a glass or two at an evening. So thank you very much. And what a beautiful label. Look at that. Just, once again, I think it's really amazing. And while I'm looking at it, it says barrel aging 9 months in French barriques. So most probably these are old because it felt really bright fruit driven. So let's move to wine number 2, which I gave 88 points. Bread and butter, Pinot Noir 2023. So this is another huge label, brand, actually, I would say. It says Napa, California. But this had the character of Pinot Noir. It was a bit, riper. I was talking about these burnt berries, flavor-wise. But in no way it was hiding the fact that it is Pinot Noir. I am a bit conflicted about the way they are marketing their wine, and I guess the label says it all, uncomplicated wine. But I don't think that wine should be simple. And maybe, yes, it should be easier to understand, but then again, is there something really bad that something is complex and interesting and you get to know it, I don't think it. But anyway, honest wine, 88 points. Let's move to wine number 3. I gave this wine 86 points. 86 points. Cison 2020 California Pinot Noir. So this actually comes from Wagner family, and some of you are speculating that this is the original formula of the Meiomi Pinot Noir. I'm not sure. First of all, because formula requires it to be really manufactured, and I think that even when you do source the grapes year after year from the same plot, it is never the same. Yeah, but you know, I was not a fan of it. I think I gave it only 86 points. Season, the label is quite beautiful, and you know, the name of it is beautiful. What Wagner family does, I think, is amazing at marketing. And maybe the similarities that some people are referring to when they're talking about Season and Meiomi is the way it is placed, you know, in the shelves. And maybe about consumer they're trying to address. And I like this thing, haha, and it says, produced by the family that created Camus. All right, so let's move to wine number 4. This wine had the highest acidity of them all. This wine actually had the acidity that I would expect from Pinot Noir to have, because Pinot Noir is usually this really zesty. It has high, elevated acidity. And this is Jean-Max Roget Sancerre. So actually, when Sancerre is not white, when it is red, it is Pinot Noir. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Now that Burgundy has become so expensive and it is very difficult to get, you know, Burgundy below 20 euros, Burgundy that makes great wines. I often think that maybe Sancerre could be offering a great alternative. The only issue is that sometimes they are so focused on Sauvignon Blanc and the best sites are reserved for Sauvignon Blanc that maybe the Pinot Noir is left as something, you know, running after the fame of the Sauvignon Blanc. And I do think that there is potential for great Sancerre Rouge and Pinot Noir. And for certain, there are some producers who make amazing value wines, amazing alternatives to Burgundy. So this was not my favorite wine. I gave this wine 88.5. It was mostly due to the fact that it had that something was covering the fruit flavors on the nose, even though on the palate I did not feel it. So let's move to wine number 5, which I crushed and burned. Meiomi Pinot Noir, California, 2021. I don't know what to tell you guys. I gave this wine 84 points. I don't think it represented where it is from. I don't think it represented what it is made from, the grape variety, the terroir. But you know, I want my wine to tell the story where it is from, what it is made from. You know, tell the story of a winemaker or their family. And if it is not doing that, that's fine. At least be high in quality or good in quality. At least offer me quality then. You know, not every single label has to have a legend behind it. Not every single label must be made from a winery or winemaker that has, you know, 5, 6, 10 generations behind them. Sometimes you can have amazing quality wine and without all of that, without all the legends, you know. But this was not it. And this was really disappointing in a way. And you don't see me a lot of times disappointed on this channel. I usually try to choose wines that I want to drink. I am very selfish in that way. And maybe this is the reason why I constantly have really high ratings in my wines. Because when I do select wines, because sometimes wines are also selected by my cameraman without me knowing them. But when I do select wines, I'm really selfish. I think of the labels I will want to try. Let's move to wine number 6, which was nice, fresh breath of air after wine number 5. I'm sorry, I gave this wine 84 points. It is what it is. Let's move to wine number 6. I gave to wine number 6 89.5. It was short below the South African one. And this is Astrolabe. I think it is pronounced Astrolabe or Astrolabe. Pinot Noir from Marlborough Valley. Also 2020 vintage, really interesting. I would have mixed wine number 1 and wine number 6 vice versa, because the purity of fruit, the liveliness of fruit that we had in wine number 1 was reminding me of New Zealand wines. I don't know why. This seemed a bit riper in a way on the nose, But when the acidity came, it was really persistent, and that was something that I do associate with New Zealand Pinot Noir or New Zealand wines in general. So guys, here we are. This is my truth. It might not necessarily correlate with your truth, you know, or your honest opinions, but yeah, I do not think I will be choosing often Meiomi Pinot Noir. I might not feel offended the next time I taste bread and butter. To be honest, that was also first time I tasted it. So, guys, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this tasting? What do you think about Meiomi Pinot Noir? Are you a fan? Do you like it? Do you think that there are other overrated wines that I should try and pin it against other labels? And if you like this video, you might probably also like my other video, Famous Tasting.